This is Wreck-It Ralph, and these are Wreck-It Ralph's deleted scenes. The first clip starts on a huge spaceship called the Brig. We see Ralph sitting in jail. And first off, before anything, look at how different Ralph's character design is. He looks so weird. Kinda looks like a big version of Clarence. Anyways, Ralph starts singing this song, "Ralphie, don't be sad." And the cellmate next to him tells him to shut up. But he keeps singing, and somehow the cellmate throws a literal food tray at his face, which shuts him up. Then we see a little guy jumping behind the bars. It's Fix-It Felix, and he looks very different as well. One very interesting thing here is that we find out that he is flying a sorority, which I think is like a spaceship or something, with General Lockload. And he's also trying to figure out how to get Ralph out of prison. Felix explains that he's trying to persuade the general by asking if Ralph can be let out if he just watches over him and supervises him, pretty much being his parole officer. Ralph doesn't like this at all though, and practically says he'd rather hang himself, which is pretty insane. Believe it or not, this isn't even the darkest thing said in the deleted scenes. I'm not even sure if this was a kid's movie at first, to be honest. Felix ignores Ralph's dark comment and starts blushing and talking about his crush, Sergeant Calhoun, and how she gives him the honey glow in his cheeks. And he starts wiggling his feet and giggling. It's so cute. This is something though that is kept in the final movie, which is pretty cool. Then Felix tells Ralph he knows that they have to get back home, but he really likes Sergeant Calhoun, so he might stay. Here's where I want to stop for a second and try to understand this world because it's so different. In the final movie, being away from your game was a no-no, because if by morning you weren't in your game, goodbye, plug gone, you're dead or homeless. But Ralph is literally in prison in an entirely different game, and Felix is like a part of this game, which by the way I think resembles Hero's Duty. But anyways, this is so weird because he just has a choice to stay. I think in this reality there is no arcade. They are just simply arcade characters in arcade games, but there's no like arcade with Mr. Litwack and the kids, if that makes sense. Which honestly, I'm so glad they decided to scrap this and do that instead, because the idea of them being actual arcade characters who literally get played is so cool to me. It makes the stakes higher and makes the games more important. Anyways, after Felix finishes geeking out over Calhoun, he leaves Ralph, and some hippie looking dude comes into Ralph's cell and smashes Ralph in the head with the top bunk. But after doing that, he turns out to be a pretty cool guy and tries to comfort Ralph because he realizes that he's pretty sad. Then we find out Ralph's motivation for ditching his original game, which is pretty similar to the actual movie. He is sad that no one thinks he's a good guy, so he came to Hero's Duty to try to make a new name for himself and show that he can be a good guy. But he's in jail right now, so I don't think that turned out the way he thought. Also, we never find out the reason why he's in jail, but I guess it was probably bad. So Hippie Man, feeling bad, tells Ralph about this game called Extreme Easy Living 2, which is like the chillest and happiest game ever. It's all good, man. This is more proof on how pointless the games are, because Ralph can just choose to go into a different game and not be in his own game, which like I said means there has to be no humans playing the games. The reality is pretty much just like different planets and each planet being a different game, I guess. Besides that though, Hippie Guy sells Ralph on going into this chill game, but he will only give him the cheat code to get there if he busts him out of the prison. So Ralph just busts them out, which why didn't he do this earlier? I guess maybe he's trying to be a good guy. I don't know. Then the deleted scene just ends. In the next scene, we see Ralph crashing into the beach with a spaceship. Dude literally kills someone, by the way, and he just responds and says, "It's all good." Also, look at Ralph here. He looks even more different. Looks like a literal animal, not even a human. Looks like a Chewbacca. Anyways, people start talking to Ralph, and turns out all they can say is literally, "It's all good," "good," and "like it." That's it. For example, this dude walks up to Ralph and says, "Good, good, 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 good." Then everyone starts saying, "Like it, like it, like it, like it," to Ralph, and he starts getting popularity, which is this place's currency. He meets back up with the hippie boy and he shows him around, and this place honestly looks pretty sick, to be honest. So far, Ralph starts partying with his new homies and they are all just dancing the same, and they're very boring, and they're just saying like it, good, good, good. And you can tell Ralph's starting to lose it when talking to a guy in the hot tub. Good, 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 good. And you can just tell this place is not for him, which understandable. I'd also lose my mind if everyone around me was only saying like 4 words and were like straight NPCs. But he doesn't realize he really wants to leave until the heart Vanellope gave him starts to fade away, and he finally realizes that he wants to go back and help her. But speaking of Vanellope, the next deleted scene starts with Vanellope, Felix, and Ralph walking through Sugar Rush, which is very different as well. Felix was never with Ralph and Vanellope early on in the movie. Vanellope is taking them to the candy corn maze, where they have to go to collect parts to build her car. And we see King Candy pop out of nowhere, obviously trying his hardest to make sure they don't get this engine. You can tell that he doesn't want Vanellope to race in this movie as well. But I have no idea if it's the same reason as the final movie, and it's sadly never explained, so who knows. So King Candy gets black licorice crows to follow their every move, who are holding literal popcorn grenades. And not just that, he also has a magic uni candy corn, which is terrifying, by the way. And you think, oh man, this looks impossible, especially because King Candy gives him literally only 30 seconds. But Ralph just knocks the entire maze over, and Easy peasy. They got the engine. And King Candy gets all mad and starts popping popcorn, which is kind of weird, but kind of cool. This scene is pretty fun and cool, but I honestly like the scene in the original movie more of how they got the car. It was a lot more fun and unique, and I'm glad they changed it, to be honest. It felt more rewarding than this scene. This scene happened way too fast, and it makes King Candy look a lot more weak than he should be. The next clip is outside the mountain where Vanellope lives, and both Felix and Ralph are with her. I want to point out that Vanellope has not glitched once, by the way. In the final movie, she glitches into this mountain, but here she just walks in. So I wonder what's the reason behind King Candy not wanting her to race in this movie. Maybe he doesn't want her to race because she's gonna beat him or something? I don't know. Anyways, they enter her mountain house. And honestly, I kind of like the dynamic between Vanellope, Felix, and Ralph. It works really well together. And I feel like we kind of got robbed of this in the final movie. Ralph is very mean and uptight, while Felix is like the complete opposite, and it's funny to see them go back and forth. Especially when Vanellope and Ralph start getting into it, and he tries to be all positive, dealing with two pretty negative people. I think they made up for this in the final movie though, by making Vanellope more positive and fun. Because here she's still a pretty fun and happy person, but she leans more into roasting Ralph and being more sarcastic and more nonchalant. Vanellope then shows them her spitting hole, which I'm glad they took out this scene because it's kind of useless. Ralph literally sits there for like 10 seconds straight just spitting, and yeah, it could be funny, but So Vanellope shows them to her bed. That's pretty much just a bunch of wrappers, which is kind of sad. So Felix comes by with his hammer and creates a triple bunk bed for all of them, which is pretty cool. Then the darkest thing said in the deleted scenes is said. Vanellope says once she beats Taffeta in the derby, if she sees her in the street dying, she would just sit there and watch and laugh. Yes, laugh. And it gets worse. So Ralph comes in and says, and you could step on her hands. And she's like, yeah, I can also break her hands. Then to top it all off, she says, and then I'd watch her die. That would be so great. Low-key psychopathic, but also we don't know how she treats Vanellope in this movie. In the final movie, yeah, Taffeta's pretty bad, but not watch you die bad. So I can't even imagine what the deleted scenes of her were doing. But still, this is pretty insane to say. Then of course, Felix being the good little boy he is like, that doesn't sound nice at all, you guys. You should just talk it out. You guys can be friends. Which, like I said before, it's cool that he can be the different perspective character, because if he wasn't there, I can't even imagine how dark this conversation would have gotten between just Ralph and Vanellope. But Ralph then gets mad at Felix for saying they should be all positive and nice, and he kicks the bunk bed and gets instant karma because it falls on him, and they end up snuggling and going to bed. And that's it. That's all the deleted scenes.